Everyone knows therapy is great for solving problems, but getting therapy has its own problems too, like finding the right therapist, fitting into their schedule, and of course, the cost. Well, BetterHelp can solve those problems. It's totally online and built around your schedule. It's surprisingly affordable too. Connect with a credentialed therapist by phone, video, or online chat, all from the comfort of your home. Visit BetterHelp.com to learn more and save 10% on your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P.
When you're ready to pop the question, the last thing you want to do is second-guess the ring. At BlueNile.com, you can design a one-of-a-kind ring with the ease and convenience of shopping online. Choose your diamond and setting. When you find the one, you'll get it delivered right to your door. Go to BlueNile.com and use promo code LISTEN to get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more. That's code LISTEN at BlueNile.com for $50 off your purchase. BlueNile.com, code LISTEN.
Hello, I'm Josh Hallam. Welcome back to another Just Films and That New Release review. I do hope you're well, and thanks very much for tuning in. Whilst I've got you, before I start, if you could head on over to whatever app or whatever you listen to and give us a little rating or review, it'd be massively appreciated, and it helps other people find us and hear our thoughts on underrated, underseen films, or in this case, a new review. This time around, I'm going to be reviewing Richard Linklater's newest film, Hitman. It stars man of the moment, seemingly popped up out of nowhere and is now in loads of stuff, Glenn Powell. As with the others, I'll try and keep this as spoiler-free as possible, but if you don't want to know anything at all, make sure you give this a listen after you've seen it, and I will touch on things that are perhaps featured in the trailer, etc. In terms of the plot, it's very, very loosely based on a real story of a guy named Gary Johnson, played by this in Glenn Powell, and an article that was written about him and his exploits as an undercover pretend hitman working for the police. Essentially, he would catch people in the act of trying to get someone killed by pretending to be the hitman that they're hiring. In the film, he then revels in using different identities and disguises and such to find himself unlocking parts of his personality he didn't know he had, and then he takes a bit of a romantic shine to a potential client/suspect, and things get complicated as she hires him to dispose of her abusive husband. So let's get into it then. So overall, I thought it was okay. I thought there was plenty to like in there, some things I didn't, but let's start with the likes. I am a big fan of Richard Linklater's stuff. That's hard to say. Sorry, I'm a big fan of Richard Linklater's stuff. And whilst this may not be up there with things like the Before trilogy or Dazed and Confused or School of Rock, obviously being the pinnacle of maybe all cinema, but certainly of his filmography, it's got some really interesting ideas in it around identity, how identity works in terms of who we are, who we could be, who we might want to be, this idea of how well do you know yourself, this idea of, duality and losing yourself in who you want to be and how that might look in this world, and that idea of how this sort of thing might actually work if it was real, and the morality of things like when is it okay to kill someone, not very often. But then it wraps it all up then. What it does, it sort of wraps it up in this sexy noir, almost ugly duckling story as the plot progresses. The whole thing's then carried very much by the two leads and the chemistry with two of them, as I think they do really pop when they're on screen together, which is in no small part down to how Richard Linklater shoots things like dialogue, presents dialogue to us between two characters, really sharing an intense connection if you think about the Before films, and I'm sure there's other examples as well. As I said earlier, Glenn Powell stars in this. He does a really, really great job of being charming and likable as a leading man. But he does, he's got the comedy chops to carry off the comedy side of things as well. He's clearly having a lot of fun in this with different personas that Gary creates, and that's probably, for me, some of the funniest moments in the film. Some of the highlights is the sort of wacky and wonderful characters that he creates. I hadn't seen him in much before. I've been meaning to watch Anyone But You because I've heard it's quite good. I've seen Top Gun, and I've seen him in a few other bit parts. But look, listen, he's in the new Twisters film, which is coming out. He's got a few other things that are coming out. His star is clearly going to keep shining, and fair play to him, because the guy seems to, whatever I've seen him in, he seems to manage to have chemistry with every single character. I think the only character I've seen him not have chemistry with is Bane when he slams his head into the desk in The Dark Knight Rises. But although it's very much his film, his co-star in this, Adria Arjona, I hope I've said that right, plays Madison. She's excellent in this. So she doesn't get as much to do in terms of the comedic side of things, but she does bring a real heart to it. So I think she shows range in a different way, because we see her character arc take her from being a bit of a shell to a sort of bit more of a blooming flower, as it were. In terms of what I didn't like, look, it's fine. It falls foul of some of the cliches and film tropes that and I think other people certainly find a little bit grating. So, for example, there's a little bit of inconsistent narration in there that I don't think is really necessary. There are some random changes in character motivations and personality, particularly towards the second half, that are just there to seemingly suit the story. And I think it tailed off a little bit. The other thing as well is, listen, I've already touched on him. Glenn Powell is supposed to be a bit of a dweeb in this, but the guy, he's just too handsome. Do you know what I mean? Whatever they try and do, he's just handsome and he's charming. I mean, imagine that's a nice problem to have, but there's just bits where I'm like, this guy's not as dweeby and as not handsome and as not charming as you're trying to tell me it is. Other than that, plays about a little bit with genre. I'd say it's mainly a rom-com, but it's sort of a little bit different as well. And it works in some of the areas that, you know, it does work, but there's the odd moment where it's a little bit tonally muddled, and I found that a little bit jarring. It's almost as if it never quite settled down into what it is or what it wanted to be. Having said that, listen, it's a perfectly watchable rom-com, good balance of rom, good balance of com, and it's pretty damn sexy too. As ever, this is my opinion. Go give it a watch yourself and see what you reckon. It's available on Netflix now. Thanks very much for listening. I'll see you next time. Cheerio!
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Think of your favorite one-hit wonder.
Or that overpriced toy your parents would never let you have.
Or that TV show that no one else remembers because it was canceled way too soon. Now what if we could fix it? I'm Francesca Ramsey.
And I'm DeLon Grant. And after 20 years of friendship, we are now hosting a new nostalgia podcast called Let Me Fix It.
Each episode, we'll dig into our favorite celebrities, shows, and brands of yesteryear, and then imagine what it would take to repackage them for relevance today.
Think of our show as an intervention, but with way less stakes.
So subscribe to Let Me Fix It wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.